today on episode 194 of the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. I go solo again, and I'm going to talk to you about the common communication mishaps and how you can fix them. That's right, folks. It's all about being synced with communication today. Are you ready for this? All right, let's do it. Yes, it is your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy. And welcome to yet another podcast episode. It's so good to have you here. And if this is your first time tuning in, it's good to have you as well. If you're listening to this in real time, we are the 1st of December. Crazy to think. The holiday season's right around the corner from us. But nonetheless, today we're going to be talking about good old communication. And it seems like there's a lot of issues around communication. I want to discuss a few of the common ones. I'm going to give you folks actual tips on how you can solve some of the communication problems that you may be facing in your organization. But before we dive into those things, I want to let you know, I had talked about this before, and unfortunately I had to put a pause on it, but I'm telling you, it is coming and it's around the corner, and that is our Leadership Growth Mastermind. That's right. It's going to be a growth mastermind, a group which is going to be all about helping you develop your leadership skills. And we're going to be honing in on the 3 domains across the board, as well as we're going to be leveraging the experience that's going to come out of this group. And heck, you are going to be able to get to interact with me, Scott McCarthy, one-on-one in the group setting, of course, right? So we'll be actually getting together via Zoom and discussing the common issues that we have across the board as leaders, and looking to not just talk about them, but get solutions to move forward for yourself, your team, and your organization. Currently building out the curriculum right now. It's going to be a fantastic program. So if you go to movingforwardleadership.com/leader-growth, and you need to put that URL in because you're actually not going to find it on the website. It's only for listeners of the podcast, as well as those members who are part of the not the mastermind, but rather the Facebook group. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, you can just go to movingforwardleadership.com/group and you'll be able to get straight in. But nonetheless, this mastermind is going to be here for you to help you elevate your game as a leader. I'm so excited to get this off the ground. There's going to be more information coming. But again, you can sign up for that mailing list at movingforwardleadership.com/growth. Sorry, that is the wrong URL. And you know what? Let's have some fun because it is the 1st of December. The actual URL is movingforwardleadership.com/leader-growth. And that is actually going to get you to where you can sign up for that mailing list. And I'll let you know when we're live. All right, so let's get to the goods. Let's get to what we're here to talk about today, and that is communication. And this came up because in the Facebook group, there was a lot of chat about communication and communication breakdown with people and their teams. and people just having a hard time. And I wanted to understand why this was happening from their standpoint, but more importantly, why, or what I should say, people can do to alleviate the problem. And in fact, help solve the problem. Now, is this going to solve 100% of your communication problems tomorrow? Unfortunately, no. However, that being said, it is a start point. Communication, like anything in life that's worthwhile, it takes time. And when teams have poor communication, it's going to take a lot of time and effort on your part to really get that communication at that high peak level. And I'll tell you, you want to go after this. Why? Not does it help you manage your day and not get stressed out and not have to be really repeating yourself or fixing mistakes on a constant basis. No, we're not talking about that at all. The reality is teams and organizations who have a great culture around communication and their people communicate effectively and efficiently, they're the ones that hit peak performance. They're the high performing teams and organizations. They're the ones that are doing top end outputs, being innovative. Why? Because their people are constantly working together with one core attribute, and that's trust, right? They trust each other. Teams that effectively communicate, they trust each other. So let's dive into how you as the leader can ensure that your team is communicating. And we're going to start off with how you can make sure that your communication with your team is effective. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right. So the first off, you want to make sure is that you're available for your team members. So a lot of breakdowns in communication is that team members feel like or believe that their leader, their supervisor, is not available for them. I have one subordinate who was talking to me once about a former leader who would walk in, shut their door at the beginning of the day, close themselves completely off to the rest of the team, and then not leave their office until the end of the day. Never really coming out to talk to their team members, never having their door open to be inviting for their team members, never keeping the ear open to what's going on out in the, their team area, just completely and utterly closing their door and sealing themselves off. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes we need to do that. Sometimes we're working on something sensitive. Sometimes we just need to have no distractions while we're working on a project or a file, whatever have you. I totally understand. 100% agree with you. But that has to be the exception, vice the rule. If your rule is that you show up and you close your door and you seal yourself off, then you are not enabling communication between yourself and your team. So have availability for your people to be able to come and talk to you, come and see you. And I've talked about this so many times on a podcast. Essentially getting out of your office on a regular basis and talking to your team, especially if you're dispersed across multiple different locations or you have people on different floors of the same building, etc. You have to get out of your office and talk to them. Now, if we are still in COVID and you're working dispersed remotely, you know what that means? Then having those calls with them, sometimes one-on-one or with the group of them, so that you have these conversations with your team members. You have to show them that you are available for them. Another great way to fix this availability problem is to schedule time, right? We are really good at scheduling team meetings. When our team gets together and we do updates and talk about our projects or giving status updates or what have you. But let's also take advantage of those times to bond with our teams. And that is going to show them that you're available to them. Okay? So schedule time with the team as a whole, schedule time with your team members individually, and show them that you are available to them. And finally, let them know that you are available to them. Enable them. Tell them that they can come. And more importantly, tell them that you'll reserve judgment if they're coming just to bounce ideas off of them. You reserve your expectations if you're enabling them just to come to talk to you about an issue. All right. So that is availability. The second communication breakdown error that I see with leaders out there is listening. And our inability as leaders sometimes to actually listen to our people and listen to what they have to say. Now, this is super important because what happens is that we as leaders, being predominantly alpha types, A-type personalities, the ones with the solutions, the ones with the answers, we immediately go to respond mode when someone comes and talks to us by actually listening to understand. And in order to get your team to operate at its peak, you need to listen to understand. So, how do we go about doing that? We need to leave our expectations at the door. We cannot go into a conversation with expectations and an agenda. Someone says, hey, I need to talk to you, boss, about this project or this problem. Do not immediately go into solution mode. In fact, try to keep your head as clear as possible. Another great way to ensure that we're actually listening is a technique that I like to refer to as the mirroring technique. So the mirroring technique is a way to ask questions or make statements that either one, gets your people to open up more about a particular topic, or two, it gets them to confirm back to you that you actually understand. And you can use this with them as well. So let's do two different examples on the mirroring technique, shall we? If you want them to open up to you about something so that you can fully understand their thoughts and their feelings around that problem, simply state what they just said back to you in form of a question. So, support comes up to you and go, these TPS reports are useless. You would go, oh, those TPS reports are useless? And they would turn and they would just unleash on you about why the TPS reports are useless. See, that's just a mirroring technique. It makes them feel seen, heard, validated, okay? And in turn, you are actually not responding to what they're saying, but rather you're digging deeper into their core problem. Someone who responds would have simply said, those TPS reports are important, they provide valuable information back to senior leadership, which might be true, but you need to understand why the person thinks they're useless in the first place. Maybe it's actually a redundant report that you're not actually understanding. Maybe the senior leadership doesn't know that it's a useless report as it gets to their level. So this is why it's important. So that's example one of mirroring. Example two of mirroring is how you go about actually repeating back to the person what they said, but in your own words. So in this example, we'll keep going with the TPS reports example. So the person says, yeah, they're useless. They're useless because the information in them is actually redundant in the system. The senior administrator for the system could actually go and get the exact same information with 3 clicks of a mouse, but instead, here we are wasting hours of our time manually inputting this information on a weekly basis into an Excel spreadsheet, which turns around and gets thrown out after 30 seconds being briefed to the senior leadership at their weekly board meeting. And then you would turn and go, okay, so if I understand you properly, the information is already in the system, so we're actually doing double the work for the same output. And if we actually got rid of the TPS report, we would still get the same information with just a couple clicks of a mouse from a particular in-person or persons in the organization. You see that? You mirrored it back to them. And you can get your people, you can do that to your people too. So if you're explaining them and you're giving them guidance or direction, you can actually say, hey, so after all this, I just want to make sure we're both on the same page. Can you just, feed back to me in your own words what we just discussed? And that enables them now to, enables you to confirm that they actually understood. And then it also re-solidifies in their brain the conversation that you had. Teaching is actually the best way to learn something because you do it twice. And this is the exact same concept. And now the final thing that I find that is common across leaders out there and why there's communication breakdown is there's a lack of psychological safety within the team or the organization. And this comes from my conversation with author Tim Clark. And Tim wrote the book on it, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. And of course, you can check that out at movingforwardleadership.com and then just search for Tim Clark and you're going to find that episode there. Anyway, Tim talks about how there are different basically 4 stages of psychological safety, i.e. how someone feels safe to be part of the team to the point of someone being safe to challenge the status quo and why decisions are made or what decisions are being made and so on and so forth. So if you do not allow people, if the environment doesn't allow for that challenger aspect, there's going to be a communication breakdown because people don't feel like they're safe to bring up the issues or communicate with you in a way as effective because they're scared of the repercussions. They're scared of getting their hand slapped, losing their jobs, being reprimanded, losing promotions, etc. So you need to develop a culture that enables psychological safety. And how do you go about doing that? It's 1, losing your ego, 2, being humble and embracing humility, and 3, just getting rid of expectations and judgments when it's right to do so. Okay? Obviously, if people are not meeting the mark, not performing the way that they're supposed to perform, then there's expectations involved in there. But what I mean is, back to that availability thing as an example, if people don't feel safe to come to you because as soon as they walk in, they say, hey, boss, I got a problem, you're immediately being judgmental of them. Like, they can't handle this yet again. My expectation is that you can handle anything given to you, right? So your availability automatically goes down because they don't feel safe to bring it to you. Therefore, regardless if your door is actually open or closed, it doesn't matter because they won't come to see you in the first place. So in order to create that psychological safe environment where people can freely communicate and talk about their frustrations and talk about the problems that they're having and look for solutions, you need to drop your ego, you need to be humble, but most importantly, you need to lose those expectations and judgments of your people so that they can bring these issues forward. All right, folks, those is 3 different communication breakdowns. Again, that is availability, whether or not you're actually listening, and then the third one, about having a psychological safe environment. Again, thank you all literally across the world for tuning into this podcast. It's so great to have you tuning in on a weekly basis. And I can't wait to get going with 2022. There are so many great things in store. It's just going to be a fantastic year. I'm stoked. I'm energized for this year. I hope you are too. As always, ladies and gentlemen, lead, don't boss. And until next time, take care.